Hey everybody on here, and this is my second one that I'm cutting out today, and it's just a couple of things that came up. The first one that I did today was the based around made in China products and illusory truth effect. So if you didn't get a chance to see that yet, go ahead and check it out. But this one, I really wanted to focus on something that I'm now starting to see come up a little more frequently, and the reason it's catching my attention is because it's connecting in with some things that I've heard people expressing that they're experiencing now. What this is that I'm talking about, it's called Havana Syndrome. And it's something that's been coming up more recently, but it's actually not as totally new as they portray it. They portray it only starting to come out around 2016, but I have some questions about whether it is just that recent or whether it's longer, because the things that connect into it and that interact with Havana syndrome or that might be behind it have been going on for quite a while. So, when I say quite a while, I'm talking more like 50 years, 60 years, and that kind of a range. And so it goes way back in many ways, and what we're looking at here. But I'm not saying that the people that have come to me have this going on, but I do think it is something that we need to be paying attention to. I think it's something that we need to be looking at what's going on with the codes here, what is happening in these situations, in these instances, and just kind of, again, staying open. What is this energy about? What can we do about it? And that's what I want to do in these videos, is to not just say, oh, here's some news out there, here's what's going on in the world, here's what the corruption's using. But I really want to also take a look at, what are these code connections behind this? And what is these things that are being done or happening in our world sharing with us? What is the insight that they have to give? Because when they're coming up, again, everything's an energetic thing. Everything has an energetic foundation to it. So when it comes up, it's very important for us to be aware of what that energy pattern is. If we're aware of the energy pattern, we can make the shifts and the changes individually and as a collective to adjust what's happening. And when we do that, this is where we start to change the world. So I'm sorry, my nose is itching a little bit when I'm getting into this. So Havana Syndrome, there was just an article that came out today, and some of it, and it's just one of the basic mainstream media articles that came up, in the Microsoft news channel, and it looks like it may have came out of Business Insider, if I'm correct. And again, the mainstream media, I don't give it a lot of credit because it spins all this stuff, but it talks about a couple of more people coming down with this Havana syndrome. And again, I'm not saying that, the people that I know that have had these symptoms have that or are dealing with it, but it definitely, it's definitely interesting to see those correlations and to see that coming about in there. So with Havana syndrome, if you're not familiar with what that is, it came about because of several people that work for the government that were down in Havana, Cuba. And as they started to come back into the United States, they were specifically connected to the embassy that was down there. They started having these problems with hearing, problems with cognitive things, feeling like they were having concussion syndrome symptoms, things like that, that they were struggling with. They were having dizziness, nausea, vertigo, things like this. And those are some of the symptoms that I've heard people talking about, like, my brain's not functioning quite right. I feel like there's this constant fogginess, and I know it's not my diet because I eat well or this or that. So they've ruled out a lot of causes actually, but they're still having this dizziness, this vertigo thing that's going on. But in Havana syndrome, so that's part of what they do. There can be pain or ringing in the ears. Now, I know a lot of ascension people automatically goes, oh no, the ringing in the ears is ascension stuff. Well, there's a lot more going on than just ascension stuff. And we've had it for decades. So I have always questioned that ringing in the ears, that may or may not be related to a so-called ascension piece. It's not necessarily automatically, and that's why we have to pay attention to this, because when these things are coming up and these symptoms are coming up, what's one of the best ways to get people to accept it, right? We talked about this in the illusory truth effect, and you start putting out narratives, right? So because they have a connection, the corruption does have a connection with some of the spiritual new age industries and aspects. What better way for them to get you to accept what's happening in your body than to say it's an ascension process? Oh, look, it's a good thing. It's a good thing you got this ringing in your ears. It's a good thing that you're feeling dizzy. That's a sign of ascension. Now, again, I'm not saying that it isn't. There can be some of that in some of the aspects with the bodies trying to adjust and all of that. But I'm saying we can't rule out either other components that are at play, and we don't want to just take anything at face value. We want to understand the components and the pieces that are behind it. And so the Havana Syndrome, again, it shows up in the news. There's not a lot of people that have been impacted. Again, mostly these have been government workers or families of the government workers that have been with them in this situation. And again, it's named after these people that were in Havana, Cuba at the embassy, and they started coming down with all of these kind of symptoms. And what was really strange is it would happen like in their offices or in the hotel rooms where they were, but not other people in the hotel room weren't necessarily, or in the hotel and other rooms were not necessarily impacted in this process. And there's a lot of information out there if you want to look up Havana Syndrome, and you'll come up with a lot of different things on there. But it can throw off balances, your balance and things like that. It can create disorientation. It can do memory loss. It can have hearing loss, things like this. And the concern that is behind this is really an aspect of what appears to possibly be targeted electromagnetic forces. And you have to wonder anytime the CIA gets involved, CIA, FBI, any of these, because they're, and even the CDC has gotten involved in this, and you think, yeah, this is kind of weird, because we know there's corruption in all of these agencies. I'm not saying everybody that's involved with them is corrupt or working for the bad guys, so to say, but definitely that always brings up warnings, because they are involved in a lot of cover-ups on things. They are involved in doing a lot of things and experimenting and things like that and shutting things down. So actually the FBI was going to do an investigation in this at one point, and the CIA basically shut them down on it. So that's something to think in mind. The CIA claims with all of this that this is not an attack by a foreign country. And of course, Trump is saying, yeah, this is probably an attack by Cuba. So, are we somewhere in the middle? Who's right? Who's wrong? Not even the biggest concern of this. But anytime the CIA comes out and just says, oh, these are just unexplained health incidences. These are just, they're just more random. Well, when that's coming from the CIA, like if that was coming from my basic down the street holistic doctor, maybe I'd believe that. But when it's coming from the CIA, there's two things I know. If the CIA says that it's not an attack by a foreign country, and then the other statement that they made was, this is not a sustained global campaign by hostile power, which basically is saying, oh no, this is not an attack by the elite of the world to control people. So if the CIA is saying these things, it tells me two things. Either the CIA is involved and they're behind it in some way, and they're being paid by the global elite, or it is a foreign country attack in some ways. Now, the research and things like that are around Havana Syndrome, the thing to keep in mind with that, like they tried to dismiss it. One of the things they tried to dismiss it, claiming, ultrasound, pesticides, and mass psychogenic illness. So again, oh no, it's these other things. It can't be that. don't look here, don't look at us, don't look at Cuba. Look over here at these other things. And this is just crazy stuff that they're doing. There's an increase in this happening with military people, military families. They've actually had some more come up that were connected to embassy people in China, New Delhi, India, Europe, and DC. Matter of fact, one of the people that fell ill with this, or they believe have this, was in DC and just basically collapsed there. So this is not out of the realm of possibilities. And it really doesn't take a lot to do it. And I think if I'm piecing some things together, this is really a type of, I would say, really a type of sonic weaponry using infrasound. And what this does is anytime you have a strong impact on your ears, now this kind of technology, it can be tied into a lot of things. It can be tied into nuclear weaponry. It can be tied into a lot of different things. But basically, it's creating a pulsing in your ears, in your eardrums. And with that pulsing in the eardrums, that creates all kinds of things that impact into the brain system. The frequency waves can also very greatly impact the brain system, but that greatly has an impact, whatever's happening in your ears, on your sense of balance, on your sense of stability, whether you feel nauseous or whether you feel fine, whether you feel like you can stand up or whether you're getting dizzy. So the vertigo a lot of times is connected to ear processes or inner ear processes. So if you're targeting sound waves or electromagnetic pulses, in this case, towards somebody, and you do them at certain frequencies with certain pulse points within those frequencies. And the frequencies actually don't have to be very high, honestly, to have an impact. Then you can start creating this brain damage. You can start creating ear damage and things like that, which would create all of these components that people have been experiencing off of this. Now, do I think that this is going to be, the thing that we're going to see en masse as far as all of a sudden everybody's going to come down with Havana Syndrome? I mean, I think there's a lot of disease options that that so-called deep state has to work with that they can play into or utilize if they want to. And I think they sit there with the list going, okay, which one should we pull out next? And there, I think there's definitely that components with the time that we're in. But when you affect the ears, that affects all kinds of other things. And when you trigger some of those other things, it also impacts it. Also, if you have an effect on the brain, that will also impact how things are working in your body. So you have this kind of mixture of things going on. And what it seems to be happening is that we have, again, a sonic weapon using infrasound. Now, if we look at the codes, for example, of Havana Syndrome, Havana Syndrome codes actually shows us that this is an aspect of a battle for power and control, which is very interesting. To target people is really about, in this aspect, the codes are showing us about where we are turning over power and control. It can be showing us where people are controlling us, who is ready to try to control the population when we're talking about world events. The interesting thing is that when somebody is operating from control instead of commanding people to move towards themselves, towards self-sufficiency, but they're trying to rule over them instead of having that self-sufficiency, they're almost always going to fall. So it's not only a sign of where there's somebody trying to get power, but where they feel that they're losing power. And oftentimes it's the people beneath them that will be the cause of them losing power. So their power and their influence over others, because they always get greedy. They always want more and more and more and more power in this process. So when we look at this, and, you know, if Trump is correct that this is a sonic attack of sorts, and we look at the codes of sonic attack and what they're using, if they're using this type of technology, it comes into, and another piece you could always look up is the Fray Effect, Frey, which is named after a scientist whose name was Fray that was researching what the Fray Effect was, which has to do with microwaves and the microwave audio effect that goes on, which is about pulsed radio frequency / microwave radiation and the combination of this. And this is research he was doing decades ago. So this is not new research. This is stuff that has been around. This is weaponry that has been used for a long time. We know it's been active. We know it's been out there. But it's not something that they've come out and said, hey, we're doing this, because of course, our governments are not going to come out and state those things. They don't do that necessarily. So what we're really dealing with then comes down to this sort of electronic warfare that's going on. And this is where a lot of the MK Ultra stuff has come out of, is these types of CIA experiments. And what's very interesting is that sometimes these sounds and these pulses can be put in under our detection, depending on how they're done and they're integrated. And one of the people that had symptoms going on and had issues going on, some of them still have not recovered, some have recovered. So some people can recover very quickly. Some people might recover in a few days or a few weeks or a few months. And then some people can go years and years and not have any recovery on this. So it's a very interesting impact when we start to talk about this. And so one of the people that was having impacts at one point had noticed a white van outside, and then got this sort of clicking sound. And there's this clicking sound. They can be a clicking or a hiss or a buzzing or a knocking sound that goes on in the ear when this is going on, when this technology is being used. And then started to get sick, and then shortly saw the van drive away. And after the van was away for a while, they were doing okay. So normally these episodes are kind of designed and they're set. When I had a couple of notes here, and this impacts oftentimes will last in bouts that are anywhere from a few seconds to like 30 minutes or things like that. So it depends on how it's being set up and done. Now, if you're wondering, well, this seems like a little far out there, why would it impact me? Why would it be so close to home? Well, they can use anything. They can use your cell phone. They can use your, any kind of electronics to move these pulses through. Even the human body can actually be used as a point for receiving these pulses. And so this is where, I have to wonder, when I've seen some of the things that the videos that were out there of people when they were trying to promote the COVID narrative in China, and you saw people just dropping. These types of things are, there's so much that can be connected to this, but we really get down to this sonic weaponry. So whether we are talking a microwave audio effect, pulse radio frequency, microwave radiation, or a sonic attack, the interesting thing about those encodes is all of those things deal with the mind. They all deal with the mind. They all deal with the ability to learn, to research, to do things, and to operate with a mind that will generate success. So if in these cases where it's connecting to that, and it also connects to memory, it connects to our ability to draw on the past or to remember the past, to be able to make smart choices going forward. It's kind of like if you remember the Holocaust, if you remember Hitler's actions, things like that, then you will not choose things that will repeat that. At least the average person would not. They would not want to repeat those experiences. But if you were to block that memory out, which is kind of interesting. If you were to block that out, then people could easily fall back into it. So I have to question when I look at the codes, are they rolling this out more and more and more? Because you can, in this type of technology, actually target something specific. So you can target a specific cell phone, or you can target a vicinity, or you could target an individual. So that's where it goes into this targeting aspect. And, you know, this can work through anything. It can work through radio signals. It can work through any electrical devices. It can work through navigation systems, broadcasting systems, personal wireless services, automatic door openers. You go to the store and the doors automatically open, police radars, handheld radars, alarm systems. And you think again how these narratives are established. Okay, let's put people in fear. So now everybody's getting alarm systems. Now everybody's got to have a cell phone. Now everybody's got to have computer. Now everybody's got to have this and they got to have that. And we'll put all stores now will have electronic doors and all, you know, so it all plays in. It all plays into things. And then they sell it to you as a convenience, as something that you need, something that will keep you safe. When in reality, it's not. It's creating this detriment in the system. Of course, the CDC studied some of this with a Cuban government appointed team, which is kind of like saying, yeah, so we let the murderer, you know, research and examine their own murder and tell us what the results were. It's the same equivalent, what they did there. So you're not going to get the truth from those people. They're not going to share with you the accurate information. What they're going to do is they're going to look at everything and go, okay, well, what narrative do we need to take care of this? What else can we blame it on? What else can we do? So my concern is that this is very, very real, because when they did MRIs on these people, they did show brain damage that went on. And we already know this. Look at the warnings. They already have the warnings on the cell phones, for example. If you put the cell phone up to your head, you can create tumors, you know, over repeated use. And that's what they're banking on, this repeated use. If they can find the right frequencies where it's rolled out subtly, just like if they poison you with chemicals through your food, right, from what they spray on it and the chemicals that are used and GMOs and things like this, then you don't notice it because it's such a slow piece. But I do think that we're moving more into this direction. So I think it's important to realize that too, the codes of sonic weapon, a sonic weapon is literally coded to assassination. And it's not just assassination or attack on somebody, but it is literally coded to the aspect of attacking those who are working in the light or making progress for God. So it would not surprise me if this is something that gets rolled out, and they're putting this in the news. I've seen it now twice, come out 2 or 3 times in the last week to 2 weeks. And I think that's part of what it caught my attention. And then as I was reading some more on it, again, seeing the correlation between the symptoms that I'm hearing people come to me say, I'm having these symptoms and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's ascension. I don't know if it's, you know, the change in my processes or things like this. So it will not surprise me if they start to use this targeting, because they don't have to be anywhere in the same vicinity as you to create these electromagnetic pulses. And what do we have going on in our solar system? Because these can also, you know, we see this happen in forms that are non-nuclear forms, like through solar flares, through storms, thunder, lightning. I shouldn't say thunder, but lightning. You know, this electromagnetic energy that's in the air. We see it through, you know, oftentimes when you see the northern lights, if you're in a place where you can see the northern lights, that also is that kind of electromagnetic energy that's in the air. That's going on in that. So that's a piece of it. This is such a big thing. And if you want to really research it down, knock yourself out with this. But when we look at the combination of Havana Syndrome with sonic weapon energy. This directly is showing people in power that are using technology to create an assassination on people, whether that is strictly to make them feel miserable or whether that is to create bigger issues to completely take them out. And as we know in this technology, it can be a fine line between causing somebody a little bit of hearing loss or a little bit of nausea and creating killing them. I mean, it's a very fine line in there, all depending on how the pulses are done. I think they will be rolling some of this out because we know that there's supposed to be solar flares going on. And I think that they will be testing more of this as during that time and blaming things on solar flares, blaming them on things that are happening that appear to be naturally going on in our universe or our world, so to say. So how do we get out of this? Because this combination of creating Havana Syndrome, out of this, it's about, you know, again, attacking. We want to remember first and foremost that this is a form of bullying. This is a form of abuse. This is a form of victimizing people. This is a form of controlling them through torture, basically, through threats of, if you don't do what we say, we'll release this and you will be miserable and you will be horrible. So you need to conform. This is the type of mentality or energy pattern that's opening up and being released through this. And it is about creating a negative stimulus to those people who are fighting for freedom, to those people who are standing up for rights, who are standing up against the corrupt governments, things like this. So this is a direct rebellion. It would make absolute sense. And I think we will see more of this come out probably as more and more people are standing up. Now, that's not to scare people because we do need to stand up. But I think they're going to try to create that negative mindset or program between standing up and, you know, for freedom, and then having a negative result as a result of it. And then just saying, oh, well, see, you know, you're the bad guys, or not, when they're really, you know, when the people standing up for freedom are really the so-called good guys. So this is really going to distort people's minds. The other aspect is those people that they can't control, what they'll try to do is to fry the memory aspect in the brain. They'll try to fry the brain's ability to function and think. So if they get people numbed down to the zombie-like state because they can't think, because they can't remember, then they become very easy to control. So it's very likely that we can see this come up. So what do we need to do? We need to double up and stand in the light that much more. We need to double up and stand in the God energy, the divine presence energy, that much more. We need to follow, or to work with those leaders, not so much follow, but to work with those leaders who are willing to take command and to work for the benefit of the people, and who will teach people and help people to become self-sufficient, who will turn things into the hands of the public and not try to centralize them into all of this small grouping of people who want to rule everything. We have to stop turning over our power in everyday lives. And we have to realize that our real protection comes through divine alignment, through owning our holiness, through releasing the attachment to things, and to standing strongly in that, because it is through that divine alignment that the attacks will stop. They're not going to stop if we give up. They're not going to stop if we give down. So you say, well, this is all still big concept to me. What does that mean in my individual life, my individual piece of this? Well, what that means is we have to start at the small levels. We have to start with our voice, our power, and say, I'm not going to go here if they're going to enforce this. I'm not going to be participating in this. And you think, yeah, but our kids should be able to, have theater and arts and music and these things. Absolutely, they should. So create one that doesn't have those restrictions. Create the opportunities for those kids to do those activities. We have to start creating these parallel economies and not at the exclusion of other people. They can join us if they want, but we have to start creating these options that are not based in control. And the more we do that, and the more people that come in, and it just takes one person, to say, I'm not going to shop there, to start more people saying, hey, I'm not going to do that either. I don't want to support it either. And to support those people who are trying to fight for our freedoms. This is huge. So it all comes down to, our individual choices. It comes down to also spending more time off of electronics. I would love to spend more time off of electronics. Unfortunately, as a writer, I have to write a lot on the computer. I have to be communicating with people. I have to do videos, different things like this. And so there are times I cannot be out of the electronics, but you can walk away, you can go get out in nature, you can go listen to the waves, you can do the things that actually restore the hearing, the balances, and offset these pulses and things like these. These sonic booms, all of those things are all triggering these dynamics when you hear the planes go over, things like that. So you need to get into areas that don't have that. You need to look at where you can unplug things, especially when you're not using them. Unplug the television when you're not using it. Don't run it just as background noise. Start to regroup again and think about, just even as a family, can you go out and can you cook s'mores in your backyard or something like that? Can you do these different things? Can you look at the sky and make that an experience for your kids as opposed to TV? The more you can pull off of this, the more you will be able to cut the options and the opportunities that they have. Are we probably going to cut it 100%? No, but you can minimize it. You can reduce the impact that it's having on you. So come back to your choices and don't forget things. If you start to have some of these experiences come up, these buzzings, these clickings, these trouble with your ears, trouble with vertigo, trouble with dizziness, trouble with remembering things, mind aspects that are going on, get down and get strong with your diet. Unplug things, get out in nature, do these different things. There are people I know that are working with different magnetic rebalancing bracelets and things like that are rebalancing their system, so they're offsetting it. You can work with things like zeolite, which is a nutritional substance, for nutritional thing that you can work with to pull nanoparticles and EMFs out of the system and things like that. So there are options. We have ways to offset this, but you've got to make those choices in your individual lives. And again, if you're a person that doesn't have to be attached to phone and computer, don't do it. Start to let it go. And I think you're going to find your mood, your spirit, your health, a lot of things are going to feel better when you do this. And start choosing, just more carefully about these things, and realizing that the more, again, we make these choices, we don't interfere, these things will not be coming down, because the people that are trying to implement them or to use them will not be in power. When we stand in our own power, when we take command of our own life, then these people will not rule in these ways. They won't make it in. They will be removed from office, but it starts with you in your own life, in your own community. So remember, you've always got the power. And hey, hit me up, give me some comments. What do you think? What do you like? Do you have topics you want me to cover? I do things sporadically. There hasn't been a lot going on in the last couple of weeks that has been new. Yes, there's big things with the truckers, but from the code perspective, there hasn't been a lot for me to delve into. Hey, if you want to stay on top of when things are going to get wonky and funky in the world, and what you can do about them, the Code Journey. This is the 2022 edition. I'm ready to start on the 2023 edition. So check it out, get your own copy, and you too can be prepared of how you can influence things on a day-to-day basis and how you can start to make shifts and changes in the world through your very own life. Take care, everybody. See you soon.